Welcome to the Crowdcast. I'm your host, George Krozek, and these are my predictions for Week 7 of the NFL season. And if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like I owe you money. The first game is the Denver Broncos versus the New Orleans Saints. I think it's going to be a really close game. I am picking the Denver Broncos just because I think their defense is really strong, and Bo Nix is certainly playing better and getting well acclimated to Sean Payton's offense. And then the Saints, they're just very injured. Raheem Shaheed is out for the season. Derek Carr, we don't know when he's coming back. Their defense has been struggling, and it seems like on offense they just have Alvin Kamara, and that's it. And Spencer Rattler, he did play fine. He played fine for his first game, and so I just think the Broncos are going to win. The next game is the New England Patriots versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I struggled with this one, not necessarily because one team's better than the other, but both teams are just so bad. It's hard to explain how just bad these teams are. I do think the Jaguars are a little bit better. Their defense isn't good, but Trevor Lawrence seems to be playing a little bit better. Tank Bigsby seems really great. And if the Patriots, Drake May did play pretty decent, so I was going to pick them, but then at the last minute, I kind of had a gut feeling with Jacksonville. But the Patriots defense is not very good, and I truly think this game could go either way because both teams are so bad. The next game is the Green Bay Packers versus the Houston Texans. Again, I think it's going to be this one will be a very exciting game. CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, the two QBs of the future, are going to be battling out. I think the Packers are going to win because I think both offenses are pretty even, but I think the Packers defense is better than the Texans defense. And the Texans defense with their linebackers and safeties are very, very beat up. And so I just think the Packers are a better team at this point. Although I do think this will be a very, very good game. The next game is the Minnesota Vikings versus the Detroit Lions. I would have picked the Lions, except I think the Vikings will win, and I would have picked the Lions except for Aiden Hutchinson obviously is not playing, and I don't know what this Lions defense looks like without Aiden Hutchinson. And their offense seems to be clicking, which is really good. The past few weeks, in the first 3 games of the season, their offense did not look good, but in the last two, their offense has been basically perfect. So it's really good, and honestly, that's what they did last year. Is they had a horrible defense last year, and they let their offense carry them to the NFC Championship game. But the Vikings, their offense, their run game is decent, although Aaron Jones may or may not play. Their pass game is pretty good with Justin Jefferson and Sam Darnold, and their defense has just been great. And so, in terms of these matchups, I'm concerned about the Lions just essentially having no pass rush without Aiden Hutchinson. And I think the Vikings are a better team at this point. And I do think this could have changed if the Lions would have traded for Hassan Reddick already, because I do think they will trade for Hassan Reddick and get him for like a fifth round pick, but it just hasn't happened yet, and I just don't trust their pass rush, so I'm picking the Vikings at this point. The next game is the Atlanta Falcons versus the Seattle Seahawks. I'm picking the Falcons to win. The Seahawks have just been struggling a lot against good teams. Plain and simple, they beat up on some terrible teams, and now they're against good teams that are struggling. Kirk Cousins has been playing great. The 1-2 punch of Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson has been great. The Falcons' defense has also been great, and they're kind of showing why what they expected to be is one of the top teams in the NFL. And the Seahawks, Geno Smith is struggling. Their run game's struggling. Their offensive line is struggling. Their defensive line is all injured. I just don't see much hope for the Seahawks this season. The next game is the Buffalo Bills versus the Tennessee Titans. I think the Buffalo Bills will win. I do think this will be a closer game than expected just because I don't think the Bills' defense is necessarily that great. But overall, I think the Bills are a better team. And they just traded for Amari Cooper, who will help them out a lot in their passing game and become probably their star receiver. And just the Titans with Will Levis are struggling. I don't think they should bench Will Levis. Just keep him in there and just pray he turns it around and something clicks with him. But the Bills, they are already a good team, and they only got better from Amari Cooper. Although their defense is struggling a bit, they will hopefully get Von Miller back after he comes off of suspension because he has been looking a little bit back to his normal self before he got suspended. So I just think the Bills will win. The next game is the Cleveland Browns versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Cincinnati Bengals will win. Deshaun Watson is a problem. He's struggling. He's playing terrible. There's no real two ways about it. And the Bengals, even though they played terrible last week and they won, but they played horrible, overall they've been playing pretty good in their losses. And so I just think the Bengals are just a much better team than the Browns. The Browns shouldn't bench Deshaun Watson yet just because they cannot get out of his contract, plain and simple. And so just keep him in there and hopefully he figures it out. But you're probably going to have to give up on the season if you're the Browns. And the Bengals, I think you're still fighting for a shot. I don't know if they're too far in the hole to be playoff bound, but I think they really just need to fight and try harder. The next game is the Miami Dolphins versus the Indianapolis Colts. It looks like Anthony Richardson will return for the Colts. And I'm picking the Colts just because the Miami Dolphins offense just has been non existent. And we'll see if Anthony Richardson can play well. He has been struggling quite a bit, and Joe Flacco has been looking really good in Anthony Richardson's absence. But overall, the Dolphins just don't have a quarterback and just can't do anything, plain and simple. Their season is over. That it's just that. Tua, I would probably bench him for the year. I wouldn't risk him coming back and getting injured again. I just give up on the season. Whereas with the Colts, it feels like they're a playoff team with Joe Flacco, but with Anthony Richardson, they're just not that great. But just hopefully Anthony Richardson figures it out and starts playing well, and maybe they tailor the offense towards, like getting better of the RPOs and, the play action and stuff like that with Anthony Richardson and more, kind of more quarterback runs, kind of like how the Ravens do it with Lamar Jackson. The next game is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the New York Giants. I have the Giants winning. I think the Giants can be well against the Eagles. Their defense has shown out and been really good, especially Dexter Lawrence. Whereas the Eagles, they've been struggling quite a bit. Yes, they won last week, but they've been struggling a lot. And then comparing the offenses is the Eagles' corners have not been playing up to par. Whereas Daniel Jones, he has not been playing really good, but he has been playing much better with Malik Nabers, and Malik Nabers is coming back to the field this week. So I just think the Giants are going to win. The next game is the Los Angeles Rams versus the Las Vegas Raiders. I think the Rams are going to win, even though the Rams have been losing a lot. They've been looking really good in their losses, and they're heavily injured. Matthew Stafford is proving he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, even with nobody else on the team. And Kyron Williams has been playing great. And then if the Raiders, they've basically given up on the season. I don't think Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew is the answer. They just traded Davante Adams, and they may or may not trade Max Crosby. I think they probably won't, but who knows? So that the Raiders are completely rebuilding now with Tom Brady being their new part owner. And so I just think the Rams are going to win. I think the Rams are a much better team and a much better coach team. And I think Antonio Pierce will probably be fired by the end of the season. The next game is the Carolina Panthers versus the Washington Commanders. I think the Commanders are going to win. Plain and simple, the Commanders are just better. The Carolina Panthers are terrible. They're one of the worst teams in the league. And honestly, I just bench Andy Dalton. Put Bryce Young back in there and hope he can figure it out. Just because I don't think Bryce Young sitting on the sidelines is doing him any favors. Andy Dalton is not playing that well. And just overall, I think the Commanders are going to win. Jaden Daniels has looked excellent. He's definitely going to win defense or offensive rookie of the year if he doesn't get injured. And just overall, the Commanders have been looking really great this season. The next game is the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers. I think this will be a very exciting matchup. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win. I do think the 49ers are a better team. It just feels like the Chiefs always win against the 49ers. The 49ers just can't beat them. The Patrick Mahomes has always been great against the 49ers. They're probably going to get Clyde Edwards-Helaire back, so it's curious on what the split's going to be between him and Kareem Hunt. But overall, the Chiefs' defense has been looking pretty good, and the 49ers have also just been looking great. Both of these teams are really good and going to be two of the top teams in the NFL. George Kittle's looked great. Nick Bosa's looked great. Fred Warner's looked great. The corners for the 49ers have been struggling a bit. But overall, Deebo Samuel's look great too, and Brock Purdy's look great, and I just think this will be a very, very exciting game. The next game is the New York Jets versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the New York Jets are going to win. This is very interesting. The Jets did just get Davante Adams, who I think will really revamp the receiving core because he does have a connection with Aaron Rodgers. Because what we've seen with the issue is with mainly Mike Williams and some of these other receivers is Aaron Rodgers and him are just not on the same page. Whereas Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers have a connection where they know where each other are at all times. And then it's interesting with the Steelers that they are benching Justin Fields in favor of Russell Wilson. Here's the thing: the Steelers do have a really good defense, but their offense is struggling. Okay, like Justin Fields, he isn't doing anything terrible to lose them the game, which he does deserve credit for, but he's not doing anything great to win them games. Whereas Russell Wilson, I think he is probably better than Justin Fields at this point. It's tough because I don't think either of them are that great, and it's just going to be interesting how Russell Wilson plays. But I do think the Jets will win. The next game is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Buccaneers will win. Baker Mayfield's been playing pretty good, and the Ravens defense is struggling quite a lot. I think Vita Vea is great against the run, and their linebackers of Lavonte David will help stop Derrick Henry and stop Lamar Jackson from running on them. The pass game is struggling quite a bit, so Lamar Jackson might be able to throw on them. But I just like the matchups overall, especially the Buccaneers offense versus the Ravens defense, and that's why I think the Buccaneers will win. And the final game is the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Chargers are going to win. Their offense is really starting to figure themselves out with Justin Herbert passing the ball more, but still relying on a strong ground game. And Kyler Murray's just been struggling, plain and simple. I know Call of Duty's coming out soon, so he's probably more excited from that than playing football on Sunday. But just Kyler Murray's been struggling a lot. Their defense is basically non-existent, and just I think the Chargers are going to win. And yeah, that's plain and simple. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like it owes you money, and I'll see you on the next one.